All right, next up, let's take a look at Data Lab. So Data Lab's the core engine behind everything in Mosaic. Okay, so every setup, every piece of research, every pattern, Mosaic AI, alert, everything, playground models, all comes from the Data Lab database. Okay, so simplest way to think about Data Lab, giant historical database that essentially just allows you to ask it questions and interrogate what happened in the past when this happened. Okay, so the goal is simple. Take an idea, filter for a similar historical pattern or setup, and see what actually happened next, and use that to develop your trade plan from that. So first of all, you'll see obviously when you add filters, they'll come up here, your active filters. You can edit them, get rid of them, all in this top area here. I'll just start at the top. Again, you can pop this out to a separate screen if you want. Alerts, notifications, sorry, we don't have any alerts or anything, or reminders or anything set up, but that will come up there. The shortcut, this is section, just obviously you've got 100 and something different sessions and columns here to choose from. So just a way to kind of navigate yourself around the columns in a quick succession. Simply just add and then just write or choose whichever column that you use often to get you there. Clear all filters, self-explanatory. They'll clear everything on your page and go back to scratch. Customize columns. So this is straight away, I've set one up in here just a minute ago, but basically, you set up a group of columns that you're going to be looking at a regular basis. Okay, so your favorites, I guess, is another word for it. So, as an example, let's use the US 500. Perhaps, obviously I don't want to see the events. Maybe I want to see US events, global events. And let's just pull off next day S&P. And we can just save that. Okay, so we'll just save this as, US layout. Okay, so, and just save it there. So you can obviously just jump in here and switch between layouts. Okay, so from the Aussie to the US, that'll just filter all the columns into your favorites. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. Okay, let's clear everything and go back to all columns. All right, so for the export setup, Analyze with AI and Add Alert, I'll just use the existing setup that we were speaking about in the first video. Okay, so I'm just going to tick all of the outliers from yesterday, run them in Data Lab, and kind of look and use patterns that I find based on what happened yesterday. Okay, so just as a recap, these are 3 outliers from yesterday that were in the bottom 10 percentile of days. Okay, so essentially it's all because the Oz 200 collapsed yesterday, first hour and during the ASX future session. So I'm just going to add one more filter to this in terms of the overnight dislocation was negative. Okay, so that's just basically setting the scene for how we're opening today. Okay, we're opening lower in terms of where the futures are pricing as opposed to higher. They're very, very different setups when you're trying to, I guess, look at and predict, I guess, what the likely outcomes are for today. So I'm just going to put a negative value or filter on that. Okay, so this is what I kind of do every morning. I just look along and I go, okay, let's have a look at, what the ASX session does. What does the first 15 minutes do? What does the first hour do? And just see if there's anything that kind of stands out. So as I was mentioning in the first video this morning, we had that really high probability both ways that we're going to hit 10 points to highs and 10 points to session lows. Okay, so You can see we obviously just got absolutely belted from open. I don't know how many points that was, 40 points or something like that. One way that you could have looked at that data from this morning is at the low around 10:15, you still had a 90% probability that over the next 5 hours, going through to 4 o'clock, the market was going to hit 10 points higher. So, pull that back, simplify that. That's essentially that around the lows at 10:15 this morning, you had a 90% probability of making 60 points at some point through the day if you traded long there. Okay, not financial advice. So, anyway, putting that aside, where were we? Okay, so that was a session high, session low. So, one thing I kind of wanted to know was after this drop this morning, what if we broke these highs? What does that look like? So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to filter time of session high, and I'm just going to take out 10 o'clock. Okay, so I'm just saying that the high in all these other cases here, we've got 8 other cases here where we had this set up from this morning, and then it actually, that past that first 15 minutes, we've broken highs, okay? So we just haven't sold off and continue to sell off. So you can see, obviously, we broke these highs at 11 o'clock. Okay, so let's have a look at a few things here. So in terms of the futures, finished higher 100% of the time, historically, okay? So that's, futures is from the overnight close. So basically just saying, look, we're going to finish 100% of the time. When we break highs, we're going to finish above that line. ASX session, again, 7 out of 8 finish above the 10 o'clock open. Okay, so as soon as this broke here, I was quite confident that we're going to finish above the, and that just gives really, really good confidence when you're trading that, okay, 7 out of 8 times, we're going to finish above that price. Interesting, again, look at the size of some of these session finishes. So very, interested to give this long, if you were trading long on that basis, give it a bit of scope, just to see if we kind of hit some of these numbers. You can see moves to highs, 5 out of the 8 reach 63 points, etc., etc. Just while I remember it, this little symbol that you see down the bottom here is your Mosaic query. Anything you want to know, learn about how the sessions are structured, the columns, the platform, navigate through the platform, everything is in Mosaic query, okay? So I could, in this case, what is the average ASX session? So all query is doing is looking at the grid here and giving you calculations as to the outcomes, okay? So average is 40 points, okay? So that's useful. That's basically saying when this setup occurs historically, the average finish is up here somewhere, okay? Again, doesn't mean it will finish that much higher, and I wouldn't expect it to, really, just given this bearish start here, but that's what the data says, okay, when you're looking at this kind of setup. All right, so let's use this in terms of a few of these. So firstly, I can export the setup. I could export this to my setup or to the collective to share it with other users. Okay, so basically, give it a name. I'm going to call it Oz 200 prior day collapse and break of first 15. Okay. I'm going to clear all of them, and I'm just going to save the filters and the ASX session move. Okay. Plus 200, you can tag this how you want it. Okay, and I'm going to save it to my setup. So we'll go to that later, but that's now saved in your setups for you to look at whenever. All right, Analyze with AI. Okay, so it's basically giving that setup preloaded, and I'll just say, show me what the ASX session does. And this should just give us, a chart, table, and a bit of analysis identical to Data Lab, but just obviously using AI to kind of, filter through it and pull out charts and some analysis. So as you can see, strong bounce after heavy multi-day selling pressure, etc. All right. So you can obviously access that from Data Lab. The alert, I might try something different for the alert on that US move that I spoke about in the first video. So I might go back and I'm going to go that day before holiday. I'll use my US layout here, and I'll go. I'm trying to remember what we said this morning. It was the first. No, that's prior day. Let's go to. Okay, so if you remember, I said we gapped up this morning, and then that first hour was positive as well. All right. So what I mentioned in the video this morning was, okay, when we saw this gap up and first hour rally, Asia, which I've marked here, 5 o'clock London Open, finishes higher 100% of the time. Okay, so again, similar to the Australian example, 10 o'clock here when we were down, got this sell-off here. Historically, again, on this setup, you had 100% probability that you were going to make 9 points at least by the end of Asia. Okay, so anyway, let's use that for the alert. So we'll add an alert. I'm going to call it day before holiday, strong start. Okay, and I'm going to say 100% of the time Asia session finishes positive. Okay, or I think there was a 0 in there, so greater than or equals to 0. Okay, right, I'm going to set in-app and email alert, and I want to be notified as soon as possible. Okay, so that alert's now created. All right, so what this will do in future moving forward is every single time that it's a day before holiday, the US opens, if the gap is greater than 1, and that first hour global session continues through, I'll get an alert. Okay, so given obviously there's a first hour global session condition here, so I'll receive that alert at 9 a.m. Okay, and there it is there. It's gone off, so I'll have an email there as well. So, and obviously says triggered. So that just takes all the guesswork out of these setups when you find them. I've got a Google sheet with thousands of these that I was tracking manually before. Maybe not thousands, but hundreds of these that I was tracking manually before I developed this platform. So it saved me a lot of time, allows me to kind of not monitor the market minute by minute, looking for setups. You've got plenty of, I think Pro's got 250 or something alerts you can set. So encourage you to really dig in Data Lab, find those setups, add the alerts and add to your setups, just to create that recurring ideas where you don't have to be watching the market second by second.